So as the video said, and as the big thing on the wall says, I'm Chrissy Frey. I'm on the board of directors for Isaiah 58, and you'll see in the program that I have the privilege of talking about suicide and chronic illness. I come from corporate America. I don't come from the Christian household like the video said. But in corporate America, we have a term, it's subject matter expert. I'm a SME on suicide and chronic illness. That doesn't mean I know all the things, and I also know that those of us in the room are subject matter experts on so many things. That has value, and you really need to lean into what God has given you as experience that allows you to be a subject matter expert for the thing that is going on in your life. Also, I did not write what I was going to say because I have a habit of when I write down what I'm going to say, I tend to be a slave to what I've written. My husband told me once, Chrissy Frey, you know all the things. It's your story. Just tell it. He's sitting over there. I can't look that way. Sorry about this half of the room. I'm just going this way. I'm talking to Tim. But
you gotta look at him.
He's absolutely right. Thank you, Joseph. He is absolutely right. It's my story. I know it. And I need to be able to lean into what God has given me as experience because I am the subject matter expert. So, with that being said, a couple of things. Number one, I'm wearing my jacket this way because number one, I'm super trendy and y'all want to be me. It's okay. I get that a lot. But at some point, the temperature will change in my body and I will become freezing cold and I will have to put the jacket on. Y'all just get to live through it. It's live entertainment. You're welcome. Also, as we've been going through and listening to different people speak, I'm a note taker, and so I've made notes about not everything that everybody has said, but I've made notes for each speaker. And then when Tim talked, I made notes because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to write it all down, but I can put some stuff on note cards. So what I did was make note cards for each of the speakers. And it's not that I need to quote them exactly what they said, but what I would like each of the speakers that have spoken to this point to hear is that these are my notes and my interpretation of what you said. So, if I say anything and you go, I did not say that, see me after and we'll have a discussion. And I'm going to go in order of the way that people spoke, and then what I'll do is I will circle back and tell you why I'm a SME on suicide and chronic illness. Okay? That's the plan. Oh, and y'all, I know a couple of people have said this is interactive, that their presentations are interactive. So is mine. I also love to go off on rabbit trails and I'll chase the squirrel all day long. If I do that, just take your shoe off and gently toss it directly this direction. It'll help get me back on track and it'll get you guys to lunch on time. Again, you're welcome. You have the authority. So, The first person to speak yesterday was Tim Ahern. Tim Ahern, and he said even that people say his name all different ways and you can go however you want. I'm like, I've always said Ahern, but he says Ahern. He's wrong. But, but Tim is my friend. Tim sits on the board of directors with Isaiah 58 with me and a couple of others. You also heard Rachel Ray and her cards next. But Tim is special to me because we're on the board together. I won't make it rude. Okay, so Tim said some things that I took from his presentation were, we didn't come this far by ourselves. And I appreciate the feedback of people giving acknowledgement and a noise that says, yes, that's right. It's very true. We didn't come this far by ourselves. And in my head, I take that as, I didn't come this far either if I'm so far misbehaving or doing so far good. Doesn't matter. I didn't get here because I've always lived by myself. I've always had help. I didn't get here by myself. We didn't get here by ourselves. The other thing that Tim said is that love is an action. And I think that each of the speakers have also alluded to that if they haven't specifically said it. But it matters because love is indeed an action. I know specifically Jayla said it just a few moments ago. Oh, the other thing, I forgot to tell you guys that be aware, I'm a crier. I brought my tissues, so if you have to pause and give me a second to figure out, you'll appreciate that I got the tissue more than you'll appreciate the snot bubbles. I'm a crier. So Dr. Rachel Ray, and the reason I remember the crying is because these things were really hard as I transferred them from my notes to the postcards, to the index cards. But food, shelter, and supportive families are not available to everyone. In the first Love Goes conference, and in the video I realized that I made the wrong reference to the time frame that it was. It was actually 8 years ago, not 7. 7.5 technically, but we're coming up on the 8-year anniversary. But I remember that in that first Love Goes conference, there was a doctor who talked about poverty and food insecurity and what that looked like. And she talked about a family who had children who were excited to have ketchup packets for dinner. So this time, when Dr. Rachel was sharing that food, shelter, and supportive families are not available to everyone, it resonated with me for that reason. The other thing that she said that resonated was that services are not helpful if you can't get to them.
Boy, that's right.
How many of the people that we serve, if we're reaching out, can't get to the services that are available? They don't know. They don't have transportation. We need to help step into that. We need to help bridge that gap. Denise, Dylan, and Jacqueline, they were just a video. I shouldn't say it like that, Jacqueline, I'm sorry. I loved watching the video that was their bumper because they talked a few months ago at the mission trip Tulsa that Isaiah's presented, and it reminded me that their story showed it's great to have an accountability partner. I love the fact that they have that in each other and that they were able to share that with us. Chris Beach, oh my word, were y'all as impressed with Chris Beach as I was? Apparently the man can take a hit. And he's impressive for more than just that, right? But that is the epitome of Jesus saying, turn the other cheek, you know? And that was impactful to me. But some things that he said specifically was he is helping churches help people. So he's equipping the people who are professing to be Jesus followers. We desperately need that. That's what this is for. So I appreciated hearing Mr. Beach say those words. This made me smile and laugh and cry all at the same time. Kids don't know that they're supposed to be afraid to pray. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
At what point did we lose our innocence and our allegiance to Christ in such a way that we want to be afraid of what we've got? Oh, I started writing this down and then I got distracted. It's in my notes. So what the card said he said, I had stage 3 colon cancer. The rest of the statement was, he said, I had stage 3 colon cancer, but I knew God would take care of that. What? Wait, what? It struck me. But I'll get to relating that to, again, suicide and chronic illness. Remember, I'm SME. Stage 3 colon cancer, but God will take care of that. Lisa Tresh, Rising Village, she said our volunteers have to be willing to step into the lives of the people we serve. It's not just a one and done people. But I think a lot of us who are here for this conference are living that out. The way that we volunteer isn't just a one and done. It's not a Christmas and Easter. I can't just go give toys for the angel tree. I'm delivering the toys for the angel tree. I'm seeing who the angel is, and I'm seeing where the angel lives. That's how you step into a life, as opposed to one and done. And some of these I took and put into my words and how my testimony has been written in the last 4 years. So this one is pretty specific to my life. So again, these are not direct quotes, but these are my perception of the presentation. Keep doing the next right thing. I had the ability to speak at a women's conference at my church in, I don't know, maybe August. I forget. It wasn't yesterday. I was here yesterday. It was before that. So part of what I spoke on at that point was endurance and how do you endure amidst hard things? How do you endure in the face of challenge? So keep doing the next right thing. That was kind of an amalgamation of what Lisa was saying and what I heard. Jeanette, is she not the greatest thing ever? I'm not going to point to her because that'll just embarrass her, and it turns out she'll be one of those little fainting goats. Sometimes just sitting with someone while they cry or vent is exactly what's needed. We have the skill sets that meet a need. And specific to Jeanette's story, it was that she's a PT and she has children with special needs. That's why her reality is reflecting her experience. But to each of us in this room, we all have a skill set that meets a need, and don't discount that. Okay, so I've called out all the speakers, I think. I'm not done with my cards, so I don't mean that I've called out everybody because I've turned all the cards. What I mean is I've called out everybody because I've specifically gone up and introduced myself to speakers, because as I said in my intro video, I know the names. I know most of y'all by reputation. And now this is one of those times when I'm gonna cry. And then I'll get to Priscilla, I promise. Now I'm calling out Katie Goodson because Katie Goodson belongs to a family that is special to mine. There are no other words to describe. Katie's mom was my son's tutor in 3rd grade and helped him pass English to be able to move on to 4th grade. So when my family and I moved to Tulsa, she was one of the first people to pour into our lives. Katie's little sister, Sally, was one of the first nurses that our son had in the PICU. Sorry. After he committed suicide. I'll get to my story in a minute. But first I have to go to Priscilla. So, Katie Goodson, as I was thinking through, and since she hasn't spoken yet, y'all only got to get my snot bubble story. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I know most of the speakers by reputation, and I've also sought out most of the speakers to say, hey, you did a fantastic job. You're doing great work. And oh my word, it is such a pleasure to meet you, because that matters. So, with all of that being said, back to Priscilla. Miss Priscilla wasn't a name that I immediately recognized and knew what to do with. But good golly, her speech was amazing. I have 2 pages of notes in my notebook, and also I did front and back statements on her note card. So, buckle up, it's gonna be a minute. So, for Priscilla, she said, show up. And you'll remember, hopefully, that Jayla also said that a few moments ago. That's going to be on the card when I get to Jayla. Because that's a huge thing. Showing up is so important to the people that we serve. I don't care if you're serving with loss of a child. I don't care if you're serving in poverty. I don't care if you're serving in prison ministry. Show up. It's a thing. I love this one. It's okay to call people on their stuff. By challenging them, you make things better for those who come behind you.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to call people on their stuff. It's all about how you approach things, your influence. Goodness, I can't even read my writing. Your influence will make all the difference in the world if your influence is good.
Amen.
Who are we helping, and how can we meet them where they're at?
Yes.
And then Priscilla, I got some stuff, y'all. But that one also resonated quite a bit with me because a few months back, I watched a sermon, and then I have the privilege of leading Wednesday night. We call it Bible study, but usually more than Bible study, it ends up being like a devotion. So the pastor that I had watched, that we all watched together, said, I got some stuff. And he stood up and he said, I got some stuff to work out. He said, but you know what? God is working things out in me in front of you because I have a relationship with him and you have a relationship with me. That's why we share our testimonies. That's why we share our experience. So Miss Priscilla, I got some stuff too, sister. And you know what? The people that we serve, they don't deserve our stuff. They've got enough stuff of their own.
Yes.
Miss Priscilla also said that. Or something pretty close. Shane Claiborne. Last night was amazing. If you weren't here, you missed it. You should watch a video. But he said, love goes. Love goes. Get it out into the neighborhood where it lives. We have a God that is loving people back to life.
Yes.
And we should share that. We need to leave room for the interruptions because that's where miracles happen.
Yes.
And then Miss Shy this morning, goodness, our church should be reaching into our own backyard.
Yes.
Ouch, that one hurts. Are you being the church? I see you. You are capable. Again, not direct quotes, but that's what I took.
Yes.
And then Miss Jayla, relationships are important. Show up. Keep showing up. So, those are all of my notes to this point, and look at that, I've spent 30 minutes and I haven't even told you my story. So I didn't grow up in a Christian home. My husband did, and through our marriage and our relationship, I came to a saving knowledge of Christ after our son was born with a genetic birth defect, as the video said. And life was, ups and downs, pretty big ups and downs. On August 15th, 2019, my son committed suicide. It's not really as it feels, because but for the grace of God, my son was taken to the hospital where, as I already called out Katie, her little sister Sally And really, we're all adults, so I don't know why I say it like that, but really, that's what she is. So Sally was the PICU nurse, the first PICU nurse that took care of Connor. It turns out that Connor had committed, and I keep saying committed because the doctors told us that medically he successfully completed suicide. When my husband found him that morning, August 15, 2019, he wasn't breathing and he had no pulse. I woke up that morning to my husband screaming, "Call 911." And I did. And it took forever for an ambulance to get there because they couldn't find our house.
Oh.
So not only, I mean, I had to, so get this, I had to stay on the phone the whole time because that's what do you call it? Dispatcher people are supposed to do, stay on the phone. So I had to stay on the phone, and my husband had to give my son CPR until the ambulance got there. When the ambulance got there, they still were not able to revive our son. So they took him to the hospital. Spoiler alert, he lived, so yes, be upset, it was hard. But also, he lived. The ambulance packaged him up and took him to the hospital. When we got discharged from the hospital, my son and I went to the fire station where the ambulance came from. And those paramedics looked at him and said, "Oh my gosh, man, you look a little bit different than last time we saw you." And he did, right? He was alive. But also, and please don't judge anybody in a first responder capacity as a result of these statements, but these are words they are never supposed to say. We only bagged you so you could be an organ donor. They didn't expect him to live because they had no idea what he had taken and how long he had been without a heartbeat or air. But God is good.
Amen.
So that's why I'm a SME about suicide. And that's why I talk about the fact that my son had a successful suicide, but he is also a suicide survivor. Now, if anybody in here has had the privilege of going through that, you certainly don't count it as a privilege to walk through it, but hindsight is so insightful. I don't necessarily think it's 2020, but I can certainly see a lot of things from this perspective. So he committed suicide. So August 15th, 2019 is when suicide came to the Frey house. You know what? Suicide didn't like to show up to a party alone. My son brought addiction, he brought substance abuse, and he brought mental health struggles. So this will be 4 years. Really for 3 years, we were in heavy-duty therapy. We did intensive therapies. We poured into our son in a way that we never would have were it not for the suicide. Our teenager could have totally made it. He was functional. He was also a drug addict. And still is. He will be that for his entire life because that was part of his story. What isn't part of his story is active addiction now. He is currently and has been for a number of years. So that's suicide. That's how I'm a subject matter expert in that. The chronic illness is me. I know I referenced that my son has mental health issues, but also his mother does. He doesn't come by it by accident. He comes to it completely normally, completely organically. It's genetic. It's what I've got to give. So when Denny asked me to speak, she asked me to speak like a long time ago, and it was just about suicide. And I was thinking, okay. But really, and then when she really asked me, like a month ago, she said, your chronic illness and suicide. And I was like, oh, okay. And I automatically thought that my chronic illness that I would be speaking about is multiple sclerosis. I have multiple sclerosis. Some people know that, some people don't. Some people think I just talk with a funny accent because I'm not from here, which is also true. But it's not the whole story. Multiple sclerosis is it's an autoimmune disease, and it's degenerative in nature. I don't speak like other people speak. Part of that function is that's just my personality, but also part of it is my MS. But I don't think that I was supposed to talk on the MS. I mean, it's a thing, it's real, I have it. My doctor says it's all in my head, but thank you. But also, it's not something that's very easily relatable. What is very easily relatable is the depression. No, I don't have stats for that. I can't tell you that 63% of Americans suffer from depression, but I can tell you that it is prevalent, it is chronic, and it really is a thing. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and the truth of the matter is that my depression was first diagnosed when I was 10 years old as a result of childhood trauma that included sexual abuse and all kinds of stuff, right? So my depression was first diagnosed when I was 10 years old. I'm a little bit older than that now. My MS was first diagnosed when I was 18 years old. Also a little bit older than that right now. I don't know whose idea it was for me to get older, but it wasn't my idea. I do not approve that message. But also, so the depression, I've been living with that diagnosis longer than I've been living with the MS diagnosis. Both things are difficult to speak about. The depression is way more relatable. And really, that's why I'm up here. That's why I'm a SME. It's not because I like talking about suicide. It's not because I like talking about depression. It's because people don't talk about it. And I think about things like when we have groups like this and when we have a gathering of people who want to press into the hard things of life, and when we step into situations where people who are supposed to be Christians and who are supposed to be fellow believers look at you and say, I don't want those people. You know what? What does depression look like? What does mental health issues look like? What does suicide look like? You know what? I want those people to be these people. And I want these people to be my people.